Ava joins me on this episode to talk about her research paper, the work that she's doing behind looking at the NFT space as an art medium and its evolution and how artists are using it now and utilizing it, getting exposure and really building their careers out. We go through a whole bunch of different topics around this. It's a pretty cool, interesting interview, and I have more interviews lined up around artists building up their NFT careers and really getting a big reach and making a big difference and changing their lives in regards to adopting NFTs, getting exposure and building up their careers. Let's get into this interview.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast.
I have Ava joining me on this podcast episode to talk about something really interesting. She's doing some research into art history, and how NFTs or NFTs come into play here and what the future of this art medium may be for artists around the world. Ava, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Pete, and thank you so much for having me here. And I'm excited to talk about all that.
Yeah, I've seen you in the community for quite a while, but we haven't really crossed paths that much. But it's finally good to meet you face to face, virtually anyway.
Thank you. Yeah, it's awesome because just a couple of months ago, I've seen that you started a podcast in the very beginning, and now it's so interesting to see a couple of months later you're growing that much, and now finally being here is super cool. So thank you.
So let's start this off by understanding a little bit about your background. So what do you actually do? How did you get into the crypto space, and how did you find Cardano?
Okay, so that story is kind of quite boring because I came here through a friend. And it was about 1.5 years ago. And in the beginning, it was I didn't have a lot of understanding about crypto, but I was always interested in technology because I was working in a tech startup for a couple of years while I was studying all the time. And then eventually I stayed here in Cardano because I realized that's something that really matches my personal values, just having an infrastructure that is here for everybody and that hopefully will improve the society and how we live together. And this is kind of a very strong personal value I have. So this is why I'm still here. And talking about my more professional background, I studied architecture, and now I'm doing a master's at Oxford University in art history. And so this is kind of combines my background. As I said, I was working in a tech startup, so I have a little bit of knowledge how things are working. And now that's pretty interesting and exciting for me, diving into this NFT or CNFT space that kind of brings together art and technology. And this is where I am right now.
It's a really cool and evolving space. This time last year, I thought nothing of NFTs. I thought, whatever, it's just a fad. These are Beeple's artwork, big deal. So sold for 61, 62 million, 63 million, something like that. I just thought it was no big deal. But then I actually found out about his art history and how he drew one picture every day for I think 13 years or something to come to that point and then deliver that giant piece. And, that made more sense. And then for me, I met a lot of the artists in the NFT space on Cardano and actually I think fell in love with not just their artwork, but themselves because, they could share their stories, their experiences and their creativity that way. So it's been quite a journey over the last year.
It has been. I mean, it was what brought me kind of in that was I learned about NFTs, and then just very shortly after I learned about Anzics, and this is how it all started. Because on the one hand, there are comparing the CNFT space maybe with other NFT spaces, there is still a lot of the Bored Apes and these type of art. And then Anzics were just, to me personally, were different because they interact with the medium. They interact with blockchain as the entity that kind of carries this new type of art. And then I started thinking okay, this is having this entire picture of art history in mind. This is something new and something very interesting, and in my opinion also something that is very, or has a big impact on the future, because how often does it happen that there's a new medium for art making? And and then I just started, like, I got into their server and like bought some Anzics apparently. This is how it started.
Okay.
And
so for people that aren't aware, we probably should explain what these evolutions are, especially in the NFT space on Cardano. So let's start off with the standard profile pic and then explain what the Anzics are, and then the next evolution. So can you explain what the PFPs are, what those terms, and then we'll evolve from there?
Sure. I have to say, you're talking about this kind of evolution. This is something that I came up with. So it's kind of my theory, and there is no proof that this is correct. It's just how I see things. So maybe the easiest, or what people understand when talking about NFTs or PFP projects, these are like PNGs or JPEG files that are simply stored on an IPFS server and linked, or like their images are stored on the blockchain. And this is like, it's a new way how digital art has the opportunity of having a marketplace or being sold in a way that it is not required having some hardware. And like it is like the very basic part when you think about just storing an image. Like the next part will be, okay, what happens if there's not just the image linked, but the actual entity that is creating the artwork? For example, it's easier to explain that with Anzics. Anzics are based on a Python script, and this script is stored in the metadata of the NFT. I
found those Anzics really interesting. The way that Alex, the creator, explained it was that a bit of the code was stored on the NFT itself. And you could use that code, if you look at it in their metadata, and you could use it to generate your own, that particular piece that was stored on that NFT. And and if you've got the computing power, you can like generate giant sizes of them for printing. And, that's forever on that NFT. As long as you have access to it, you can regenerate that art piece wherever you are in the world.
Compared to PFP NFTs is, so the code itself is part of the blockchain. So having not only the output, the image, but also the source. And so having these two entities, this is what I try to say. And like now we have art that is stored on chain. We also have art that is created on chain. And now we even have a third part, like what happens if we take actual data from the chain and create art based on that? For example, and here I have to give a little shout out to Patrick from Unsigned, because he's working with this, what we call non-fungible visualizations. The idea here is really having data and having them visualized in an artistic way, because for a long time, when we think about like these data visualizations, there are like these pie charts and all that kind of things. Yeah. But now we have a new tool how we can visualize that in a much better way, and these visualizations can even be dynamic. So we have something that is stored on chain, created on chain, and even can take data from the chain. So it's a very wholesome kind of construct.
I have seen that piece that's been floating around, the Epoch Clock. Is that the correct name?
Exactly.
Yeah, I've seen more and more people with them as well. So is this what you're talking about in terms of a non-visual, non-fungible?
Exactly. I mean, let's talk about the Epoch Clock just for a little moment. There, the idea is really, okay, the epoch time is something very specific for Cardano. Like, we don't have that in normal life. We don't have it on other blockchains. And having this visualization is, basically it shows the epoch time. And we are transforming something hard to understand into something visual. That's like the very basic idea, and I mean everyone understands it. If the clock shows like 5, it means okay, now we have payday, and it's like the end of the epoch. I mean, the fun thing is people now started using it as a profile picture. That's also kind of like interesting, even though it's not dynamic if you have it as a Twitter handle there.
Okay, so I actually haven't seen the Epoch Clock in action. I've only seen it as profile pics for various people that obviously have them. So I'm assuming when you're looking at this NFT in a viewer like a Pool PM, for example, or a Nami wallet maybe, you can actually see that accurate epoch time and the epoch number. How cool is that? That's actually quite useful because sometimes I completely forget when the epoch changes over and everyone's posting.
That's the point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And I guess like from that, has Patrick come up with other ideas or influences that can be pulled from data that's on chain?
I mean, basically, you can use any data that is on chain. We are at the moment. This is just a very example because epoch time is sometimes hard to explain, but at the same time easy to visualize. And this is where we all started. And basically, any data you can store on the blockchain you can use. For example, he's talking about health data, or also like weather data. I mean, blockchain is nothing else than a data storage eventually, and whatever data is in there. You have this trusted data source and you can use that. And another interesting part is like it changes also the way how people are telling stories, because assuming we have the same data set, I do my own Epoch Clock, for example, but you can use the same data set and create your very own clock. And that's very interesting kind of, because like you can shape also the way how you tell stories. And I think that's a new use case of NFTs as well. Like it's not just, it can be more than just art. It can be more than just data visualization. It can be a mixture. It can be both, but it doesn't necessarily have to, because for example, with these visualizations, you also could, you could color code your health data. For example, there are some projects out there that are pulling data. I think, for example, transaction data and visualize them in some sort of abstract art. And there are just so many ways what we can do with it.
It'd be very interesting to see what comes out. Like once like one person comes up with an idea, it kind of spawns more opportunities, I guess. So now we've got this data source and this coming from here, and it's always on the blockchain. So now we can create that NFT and it will pull and do that visualization for us. So yeah, I'm really interested to see what other creativity comes out of this. Like you said, like the clock time, someone else might do a different clock. So who knows? Be very interesting.
Exactly. And I mean, it sounds technical, but as I said, there is also like definitely an artistic part about it, because I still now I'm somewhere in between talking about technical aspects and figuring out how do we, or what is going to happen if an API is not working anymore, or if just all this part. And there are some more things like how do we actually update metadata? Is it possible? Do we have to remint and this kind of stuff if you want to have it dynamic? And on the other side, it's like, okay, people might be asking, is this really art if we have a visualization of time, or if it is it just a clock? Does it have an artistic aspect? And like,
I think it does. Like, I've seen sculptures where, it really transforms depending on where the sunlight hits it. So you have a different experience when you see a different from a piece at a different point in time because of that light and the evolution of it, essentially.
I mean, that's another part we were talking about, like just recently, having this idea of an experimental artist and like more a theoretical artist. So is it like, in my opinion, it is also creative if people are coming up just with the concept and try to tell a story, even though they're not necessarily able of creating the actual artwork. And that's now if you bring these different people together, I mean, also there are also devs involved, bring the actual data and provide it to people who will visualize it. And this act of orchestration, in my opinion, is very creative, and just it also influences the way how art is being made. And this is why I definitely say that like having something as an epoch clock is or should be considered as art as well.
For a traditional artist that is working with pastels, or paints, whatever it might be, how are they viewing this, and how would someone like that transition into NFTs as an art form or a medium?
I mean, there are different aspects of it. Like, I've recently read that there are organizations and institutions popping up that try to have an NFT for traditional paintings, for example, just as a proof of ownership and authenticity, without actually having this painting on chain or having a digital version of it on chain. So this is like the ground layer. And then I know that there are many people are switching from traditional art to start making digital art, and there it is much more I don't want to judge and say this is much more interesting. It's just like I think artists realize that blockchain is a medium that is not yet hasn't been explored so far, and that there are a lot of opportunities out there. For example, if you think about like rarities, this is something you kind of have in traditional art. Photography is one medium, for example, where it is kind of obvious you can have the same photograph just multiple times and reduplicate it. And then you have questions like how to handle that. Is there a better one or is the first one more valuable than like the second copy? And like these kind of questions. And these concepts are transferred to our space as well. And I feel like people are still figuring out what to do with that, and are exploring. And this is what makes it, I think, interesting whenever something new happens, as what we have right now.
I do find that very interesting. Like I do collect traditional art pieces. Like hang on, you can probably see just behind me there. So those ones are prints, but the one with the palm trees right just over my shoulder there, that one is from a local artist, like an Aboriginal artist around here that sells them to like gift stores or whatever, and that's her print, and they're all numbered, so it's part of a series. So that's kind of like that NFT thing, but they're identical, as opposed to the NFTs that artists are creating, where they might have slight variations to them. And I love that aspect about the NFTs. They're slightly unique in some sort of way.
I mean, yeah, that's of course very interesting. And like the question that also Alex from Anzics brought up is, why do you actually buy an NFT? Or why do you buy an Anzic? Because you can copy the code. You can create this image for yourself, and you don't necessarily need to have, or you don't have to pay for it. But I mean, the project sold out, I think, within 3 months or so, and it was like a massive drop. And when you think about it, there's something about these NFTs that people actually want. They want to own this piece, and I mean, I haven't found, or I also don't think that there is a final answer to the question why people buy that. It is maybe like art is always, there's a big buzz around it. Also, like in traditional art, when it comes to trading and value, and this is just one aspect that is always part of art, and like how to deal with that, and how to find solutions if you have a piece that is basically reproducible endlessly. is a new way of thinking about how to create art as well. And then displaying NFTs is like a whole other story. What to do with that? Does it make sense to have prints of an NFT, or does it make sense to have like just have it as a screensaver, or like these are just like all the questions that are coming up.
Like traditional art pieces, like collecting them. If I could, I would have a series of Monets on my wall back here if I could afford them, and I'll show them off. It's like, here's my original. It's it's definitely something that one, you can admire the artwork yourself, and you can always look at it and you go, yes, that's absolutely fantastic. But yes, it is a little bit of a showing off thing. It's like, I managed to get this for such and such price, and it's like a status symbol. And I feel that's the same way with NFTs as well. It is what they call a flex. You use it as a profile pic, and you go, "Oh wow, you've got a Bored Ape. That's pretty cool. That's how much did you pay for that? Not much, but it's worth millions now." So it is like that showing off aspect. But a lot of these art pieces I actually love as well. I look and go, "Yeah, that's really cool." I know some of them are generated, but it is really cool.
Exactly. And I mean, what you are implying right now is also this sense of community, because this is what this I think that's like the real value of peer-to-peer projects. They're kind of able to bring people together who wouldn't interact in any other way. And what is interesting is like interacting with a blockchain or being part of a community that is global. It also implies that you most probably won't ever see like 99% of all people you are interacting with. And being part of such a PFP project, you get kind of, it's easier to interact because you have something to talk about, you have something to change, you have something to like to trade. I mean, and it provides some sort of a human element in a very technical world. Like you can, sometimes it can be very silly and very cute and very like, but I think it perfectly serves this need for human interaction.
I think so too.
In a global community.
I really think, that's a huge thing. It's like all of these really successful NFT projects, they do have really big communities and followings behind them. And the community is very passionate about the project itself. And with Anzics, like you look at their community, for example, it's huge, it's large. And any of the like Bored Apes, any of those big profile ones, they've got massive communities behind them as well.
Exactly. And maybe as you're talking about more like the human element, like the research that I'm doing at Oxford is like what I said in the very beginning, that I value blockchain technology as something that is able to bring change to the people, because removing all the centralized institutions, or that we don't have to rely on them anymore. And this is also something that is present in the art world or art market, because for a long time I kind of had my personal, not problems, but like I had issues. If you look at museums and galleries, I love to go to museums, but at the same time, it's also this kind of institution who kind of dictate what is considered to be art. And now, as we have blockchain, it is just shifting this power, and it's not. I mean, you can apply this model to the art scene, but you also can apply to the entire society. And this is what I try to do with my thesis eventually, like talking about this change within the art market and art scene, and at the same time trying to point out, hey, this is a huge opportunity, and let's just have a look at that, because I struggle with this because blockchain is something so technical, and I'm with my humanities background, people there, they don't know a lot about blockchain. They know about NFTs and like that, but it's more like, it's something coming there, something is happening, but I don't know what it means. And so I try to explain this very powerful tool, just looking at NFTs, and then like having conclusions, what it means to, or talking about the opportunities.
So you said like influencing various art markets. What did you exactly mean by that? Do you mean like people actually shifting from traditional art pieces and going into the digital and NFT space? Is that what you mean?
To come up with one example, Artano, I just learned about them in more detail. What exactly they do is like how art is curated is also being changed. Not only how it is produced, but also, I mean, there are many marketplaces popping up. Like some of them, they're like just very free. Everyone can upload their pieces and sell them or buy them, whatever is needed. But like, because there's so many NFTs, I mean, it is clear that also some sort of curation will come up. And now talking about Artano, I really liked their approach of saying it is a community-driven approach, and they try to, or I think they are coming up with their own governance system and token, and how to decide which artists should be created on their platform. And this is an approach, again, that I appreciated a lot, because it is the community that decides what should be there and what should be supported. And as I said before, like with traditional art, very often that there are just these huge institutions or museums with a lot of money behind. And as an artist, either you are very lucky and you're chosen, or you most probably you have a lot of hurdles you have to take in order to get somewhere. And I think here we just have a very a more immediate like way of how artists are being able to promote and like exhibit their pieces. And another idea that I find very interesting is like having virtual galleries, for example. This is something also that is not yet explored in detail, I think, but I'm very curious to see where it goes. Because, for example, again, talking about Anzics, what would happen if you could enter a room that is just consisting of these color gradients? And What I'm trying to say is that there are new possibilities coming up that are not limited to like physical space anymore. So you can have a look at art and NFTs in a very new way. Art, the experience, how art is being produced, how it is bought, and how it is like perceived is completely changing. And
wow,
like it's just a very holistic change that is, or movement that is going on right now.
Yeah, it is very good. So back to your point where the traditional institutions dictate things. I love Artana and what they're trying to do with that decentralized governance and letting the community curate all the artists that are on their marketplace. So, artists come in, they decide which ones are actually on the platform. I think that's absolutely fantastic, because it really gives more artists a showcase and a medium and a channel for them to actually sell their art pieces and actually make a career and living. So I absolutely love that. I find it also gives them NFTs and digitalization of art has given a lot of artists opportunities to actually make more money and just make a career out of their art form as well. So that I think that's really interesting evolution that has opened up more opportunities for artists. Exactly.
And also, I mean, royalties will also be something that will be tremendously helpful for artists, because as I said, like in traditional artwork, it is a chaos sometimes. And I mean, we still have this chaos in here because we are figuring things out, but like just having some sort of like truth and certainty, if you exactly know what is going to happen with your art piece, and also like you're being able to rely on that if there are royalties on your NFTs, that you don't have to rely on any external institution or something like this, and you like the value of the art that is being produced is just value in the sense of the work of the artist is more valued if you want to call it like that.
So a lot of thinking about this. How long have you been doing this research for now, and what's your end goal of all of this?
It's quite intense because it's a 9 months program. I do this research as part of my master thesis here, or as part of my master program here, and I'm now 3 months in, so there's kind of half a year left, and where I'm actually doing all the work and the writing. And the goal is to have a paper that will be published eventually. And as I said before, at the moment there is just a massive lack of research done in the humanities about Cardano, about blockchain, about NFTs, and I hope that it's a big thing to say that I hope that I can kind of start this debate there, but at least I feel like I have to start somewhere, and that's eventually my goal, to have to kind of bridge academia and Cardano, or humanities and Cardano, and just raise this awareness of what is happening here. That's
going to be hard, because I think a lot of people in the traditional art space will just look at it and go, nah, it's just a fad. Especially for someone that's grown up and has had a full career as an art curator in a gallery, and they're looking at anything from traditional art pieces from really old ones, the Renaissance, all the way to modern art, and that's what they're looking at, and that's what they're used to. And transitioning over to NFTs and something created digitally might be a very hard ask for some people. But, if they do, I think it could be an amazing thing. Like you were saying earlier, turning into VR experiences or something like that, becoming something very immersive, like having I think a virtual space where an Anzics gradient was what I saw. It might make me feel a little bit dizzy, but I totally get the point. You could do some very, very amazing creative things in a virtual space.
Exactly. And I feel like there's more and more people coming in, NFTs are, as I said, not only limited to digital art. There's jewelry that have NFTs, that there is fashion or music, and there are just many things that are related to that. And again, talking about the research, what makes it super exciting for me as well is art history is always something that looks to the past. And I feel like now what I'm trying to do is looking at what is happening at the present, and at the same time being able to kind of just by looking and talking about it, having an influence on what comes in the future. And this is what makes it valuable for me, that hopefully, as I said, raising this awareness that NFTs are not just another way how people how to generate money, because there's actually a lot more behind. Because, as I said, when we're thinking about this very holistic, or the entire thing that blockchain brings to art, as I said, as a medium, as a marketplace, as a data storage, as a and
yeah, there's so many aspects to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you facing friction from artists or people in the community that you may know of that think NFTs are very unenvironmentally friendly, being the traditional Ethereum space, proof of work, it's very energy resource intensive. Do you find a lot of art critics saying, no, we don't want to touch that because it's bad for the environment?
Yes, I do hear that. The funny thing is, this is not the funny thing, but I'm not, or this is the reason why I mainly focus on Cardano, because proof of stake just makes a lot more sense in many ways. And then when I try to explain this and talk about the advantages of having this different model of how a blockchain is working, then people this was just my experience, they start realizing, oh, there is more, and it doesn't necessarily, or gas fees are not just the state of the art, or this is hopefully something that is changing. And another kind of critical question I often get is like, but again, talking about Bored Apes, is this something that will last? Or like all these PFP projects, and like having this question about, is it somehow comparable with, I don't know, Profco or any other traditional artist? And I feel like this is something that makes people think about art in a more deep, on a more profound level, asking again, what is art? What does it mean? What does it do to people? And is the art, or does the art does it need to be physical? Does it need to be like, does it has to be represented in a museum? Or is it, as we said before, is it also like the community aspect? And having these kind of new movements also like make people ask, okay, what is it all about? And having these iterations and reflections on what they are talking about is valuable, because whenever you have these kind of critical voices, it just makes you think in more detail about what you are actually doing, and it makes the work better. So I think it's very important that people are also asking these critical questions. And I think art shouldn't somehow harm our environment. And this is why Cardano.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds like some very interesting research work that you're doing here. And is there any way that people can find out more about what you're doing, or reach out to you and connect with you?
Yes, actually, I have voting, or Fund 7 Catalyst voting has just started, and I have a proposal there, which will help me exactly just fund whatever I'm doing here. And that's one part, and like having that support would be just tremendously helpful. And I mean, I have the website where I normally just have some updates, or at least publish what I'm working on. That's another point. And what I always appreciate a lot, like having discussions, and we are hosting our own Twitter spaces. As part of the ADACafe, where we actually invite us like artists, and having this debate and introductions on what they are doing, what I am doing. So if anyone wants to be part of that, we are having these spaces quite regularly. And these are kind of the main parts.
Brilliant. I will grab the link to your Catalyst proposal, and we'll put it in the show notes, along with your website and ADACafe, which I haven't had a chance to join yet. I think the time zones are a little bit off, so I can never actually join some of these really cool Twitter spaces that have been going on at the moment.
Yeah, time zones are an issue, as we said before, when talking about a global community.
we just deal with it. We just do what we can.
We just do, yeah. Okay.
Awesome, Ava. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learning more about your research and what you're trying to do, and trying to show that evolution of NFTs, and hopefully an evolution into that particular medium as for artists.
Thank you so much for having this conversation, and I'm very grateful for like being able to talk about it and like bring it to people and like let them know that it's about them, and that's the goal.
Awesome. Thank you, Ava.
Thank you.
Now, if you wanted to find out more information about Ava's research, I put a link to her Catalyst proposal down below. Unfortunately, I couldn't get this interview out before Fund 7 voting ended, so unfortunately I couldn't do that, but you can read more about the proposal there, and maybe she'll submit another one in Fund 8 and evolve the proposal that way. Now, if you like this type of content, please make sure you give me that thumbs up, click subscribe, and click on the notification bell, and you hear more great Cardano related content from me really, really soon.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debating.